With roughly 2.1 billion followers worldwide in the year 2020, Christianity is one of the most prevalent religions in the world. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, Christianity is defined as the religion derived from Jesus Christ based on the Bible as sacred scripture and professed by Eastern, Roman Catholic, and Protestant bodies. Due to my interest in the several forms of Christianity, I've decided to sit down and interview some people who practice those different forms. Could you please state your name and what denomination you associate with?
Sure. Stephen Vandlin, and I'm a Presbyterian.
Okay, I'm Karis, and I'm a part of the Seventh day Adventist denomination.
My name is Cindy, and I was raised Jewish.
First question is, did you grow up in a very religious household? And if so, is it the same denomination you associate with now, or is it different?
Yes, I grew up in a very religious household, and it is the same denomination that I'm a part of now. I haven't changed.
So I would say that at times our family was religious. Um, I actually had two religions from my parents. So my mom's family was Jewish, my dad's was Lutheran. And so in our household, we had both holidays celebrated and things like that. Not always with the religious, spiritual part of the holiday. When I was in elementary school and into junior high school, I studied and conducted my bat mitzvah, which meant that I had to conduct the services for the entire congregation and read from the Torah and things like that. So back then, I would say that we were pretty involved in our synagogue and things like that. As I grew older, experiences in life, watching some of the hypocrisies that exist with organized um, religion and things like that, took me away from being a part of a congregation. I think that my beliefs about many things in terms of my beliefs about God and all of those things were formed when I was younger. So I have feelings about that.
So I grew up in a household, a religious household. I grew up as a Baptist, and as of about 5 years ago, I became a Presbyterian.
Gotcha. And what made you do that switch?
More aligned with my personal beliefs.
So you stated earlier that you grew up Jewish and you had that religion going on in your life early, but you truly, like, that's where your religious beliefs came from. Do you think that you would still hold those religious beliefs or have as strong of a faith as you do now if you didn't grow up with that in your life?
Um, that's hard to say. I don't know if I would hold the same beliefs and ideas because um, Jewish teachings and things like that are so different than the Christian ideas that are out there. And I think that that might have influenced me if I was not raised a certain religion when I was young.
Uh, do you think that you'd have the same level of faith per se if you didn't grow up in a religious household? Like, do you think that you would have the same connection to a higher being or higher power that you do now?
I'd like to think that I would.
Okay,
I mean, my journey of faith started younger because of my upbringing, I would think.
gotcha.
No, I definitely think it wouldn't be at the same strength because if I hadn't had that background, it's likely I would have never really become or had faith in God at all. And I think growing up in that kind of household definitely had a big impact on that.
And so, in the Bible, there's many verses talking about an afterlife, about heaven and hell. What are your opinions on that? Do you believe that there is an afterlife? And if so, do you believe in the classic biblical heaven and hell?
Okay, so this one's kind of interesting because with Seventh-day Adventists, they concentrate a lot on the end times and kind of your salvation. So that's like heavily concentrated. So a lot of the teachings based on Revelation, and that's the last book in the Bible in which it kind of like tells you the signs of the times and like what to be prepared for when Jesus comes again. But I think through my own teaching or like my own research, I've kind of come away from a lot of what the Seventh-day Adventist Church taught. It's a lot of very like negative talk about hell and that people will burn eternally. I personally don't believe that. And I don't think that a loving God would do that and would allow any of his, own children to burn in hell eternally. I just don't believe that. I do believe in heaven. I believe in like heaven in the way that the Bible talks about it. But I also think it's like that's the hardest thing to believe out of like what the Bible teaches in general. It's one of the hardest things to wrap your mind around. It sounds really fairy tale like, but I do believe in it.
I do believe there's an afterlife.
Okay. Do you believe
Um,
heaven, hell? What goes
and
on in your head for that?
I do believe in a literal heaven or hell. Um, However, I don't know the details.
Gotcha.
What the description would likely be, but heaven obviously being the better option, and hell being a place of um, separation.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Um, Great question. I remember part of our teachings and asking about that when I was younger in our synagogue. And the response that the rabbi gave is one that has kind of stuck with me forever. I don't know about the afterlife in terms of is there another existence, but the response was this: in Judaism, they don't believe in hell. They believe in heaven, and they believe that everyone goes to heaven, and that if you truly do not have a good and pure heart, that you will create your own hell living in a existence with everyone else who does have that good and pure heart. So there wasn't that separation of heaven and hell.
Gotcha. So how do you invoke your faith on an everyday level? Like what in your daily life do you think that your faith has a part of?
Um, so every single day, I think being a Christian, the hardest part about it is to treat people with, the way that Jesus would. Like it's not conforming to what everyone else would do. And that's like that's how I use my faith in my everyday life. I have to treat people differently than everyone else would treat people. You have to be more patient. You have to be more kind and understanding, whether or not you agree with that person or not. It's going out of your way to be a better person, no matter how you're feeling that day.
I do start my day every morning with a Bible reading and a specific author that writes interpretations of what I read and like an inspiration for the day. That's something I do every day.
So the final question I have is why are you Seventh-day Adventist?
Yeah, I'll start over. I don't know. We're gonna keep recording. Don't record.
We'll just keep going.
Okay, but like, okay, so no. Uh, I don't want to I don't know if I want to associate myself as Seventh-day Adventist always, because I associate. Although I grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist church, I wouldn't necessarily associate myself as a Seventh-day Adventist just because of some of the experiences I've had in the church. And I don't really like the way that I have been treated in the church. So I'd like to say that I'm just a strong Christian and that I have a strong relationship with God rather than say I'm Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay, and so then what makes you a Christian?
What makes me a Christian is the fact that um, whether or not there is a God, which I truly believe that there is, but whether or not there is or isn't, I think that one, it benefits your life as a whole. Like it just overall can improve the quality of life. And not to mention, I think it just, I don't know what to say. I don't know. And then, what was I gonna say? Not to mention, I think that if there weren't a God, what's the harm in believing that there is one? Because if there isn't, then you don't lose anything. All you've done is, had a relationship with a so-called God in your life, which that does no harm. But if there is, and you believe that there isn't, and you never really, come to salvation in your lifetime, then you're missing out. You miss out on salvation.
So this leads me into my final question. Why do you have faith?
I think that it gives you that sense of hope. There's always hope. There's always that belief that there's got to be something greater and bigger than our existence. And so I think that having that idea that there's something out there that is good and that we should have hope and faith that ultimately what everyone is striving for is good. I think that that's the thing that creates that sense of faith for me.
Something I like about the Presbyterian Church is it causes you to think about things differently. So I don't just take at face value. In the church, they allow different varying degrees of thought on different issues.
Okay.
So I grew up very cut and dry. It was yes or no, whereas the Presbyterian Church encourages more thoughtful discovery and uncovering of different ideas. I'm Presbyterian because I do believe the Bible as the framework for faith. And they teach the principles of the Bible as well as trying to give you a greater understanding of what it means contextually. And I also like they talk about living out your faith. It's not just a private thing, but it's everything that you do in your life, how you interact with others, how you interact with the community, how you interact with your work. It's all encompassing in your life.
Awesome.